I'm Andrew Jeffrey. Book 2 of Aristotle's Politics is devoted to a survey of ideal and real constitutions. By constitution in this context, we don't necessarily mean a written document as much as the entire social structure of the city-state and its system of government. The ideal constitutions are those of Aristotle's teacher Plato, Phaedrus of Chalcedon, and Hippodamus, with the bulk of the attention given to Plato, unsurprisingly. Plato was no friend of democracy. In a system where one man gets one vote, there will always be more fools than wise men. So a democracy would inevitably be, in Plato's view, an idiocracy, the next worst thing to chaos. For the most part, Plato agreed with his mentor Socrates that the great problem with the human condition was ignorance of the good, and that even people who had a reputation for virtue often couldn't explain virtue or teach it to their young. He would not have been popular in a PTA meeting, for he held that most parents didn't know how to teach their children to be good. Plato saw nepotism, favoritism towards one's children, regardless of their worthiness, their real merit, as another one of the great downfalls of the Athenian society. Plato is the first great proponent of political rationalism, the idea that the authority of law and the sovereignty of the state rests in its correspondence to reason. He proposed a three-tiered society in which wise philosopher kings, with the support of passionate military auxiliary, ruled over the appetitive economic and trade classes. He proposed that the education and complete child rearing of boys and girls should be taken away from biological parents and delegated to state experts, and to abolish jealousy and nepotism and promote esprit de corps. He made the radical proposal of abolishing the nuclear family. Reproduction would be facilitated through a state-run lottery that would pair up men and women for purposes of procreation. It would be ostensibly random, sometimes guided by reward for special services to the state, but secretly organized by the philosopher kings around long-term eugenic considerations. Plato held that different people were innately suited to different kinds of tasks, and so in the education system, children's innate talents would be identified, and then they would be tracked into different courses of education, depending upon whether they were philosopher king material, military auxiliary material, or tradespeople material. Finally, for the philosopher rulers and their military auxiliaries at least, all property would be held in common to facilitate a core identity and prevent jealousy. Aristotle holds that Plato's proposals just can't work. Instead of everyone taking responsibility for every child of the state, everyone would regard every child as, well, everyone else's. And so instead of uniform concern for the well-being of children, you would have uniform neglect. And as the task of trades and money-making involves a certain degree of selfishness, private property couldn't be abolished for the lower caste, which would then create a cultural rift between the lower castes and the upper castes, which would defeat the purpose of esprit de corps, core unity that Plato had intended. You simply can't, Aristotle argues, socially engineer away human selfishness that easily. Phallius of Chalcedon was an egalitarian. He did not hold that all citizens should hold all things in common, but that all citizens should be apportioned an equal amount of the state's wealth and property. Aristotle criticizes his proposal as impractical. The state would also have to, he says, regulate reproduction and make sure that everybody reproduced equally, or some generations later, some of the population would be rich and some of the population would be poor. Likewise, he held that you would have to somehow equalize the appetites and the education of all the citizens, and he didn't think that this would work. Finally, there's Hippodamus, who you could call an ancient Greek version of a progressive, as he believed that the state could be constantly and perpetually improved over time. Hippodamus proposed that the state reward innovations that Aristotle says would be overthrowing traditions. Aristotle, like his mentor Plato, believed that it was possible that there could be such a thing as an ideal state, and if that was achievable, it would be static. It wouldn't change constantly, and any change that did occur in it would be for the worse. So Hippodamus's proposal was also unacceptable to Aristotle. This deals with the ideal constitutions. I will have to cover the survey of actual constitutions in a separate video. Thank you.